We have Vav Bet.
Yep.
Corpse beaters that will be passing under a portico, and one of them
What
shut
is
the door.
no, no, they're not corpse beaters. That's one thing that they're not.
Bears. No reason to beat
That
the
sounded
corpse
really
anymore.
bad.
No reason to beat the corpse anymore. Okay. Corpse bearers that will be passing under a portico, and one of them shut the door and close it with a key. If the door can remain closed by itself, the house remains tahor. If not, the house remains tameh. A similar case would be where a barrel of dried figs or a box of straw were placed in a window. If the dried figs or straw can remain in place by themselves, contents remain tahor. But if not, everything becomes tameh. A house was partitioned with jugs that were plastered with clay. If the clay can remain in place by itself, the other side of the house remains tahor. If not, it becomes tameh. A wall constructed to be part of a house is ruled half and half. How so? An exterior wall contains tumah, and if the tumah is in the inner half of the wall, the house becomes tameh, and if someone standing above the wall remains tahor. If the tumah is in the outer half, the house remains tahor, and one standing above it, the wall becomes tameh. If the tumor is in the middle of the house, becomes tameh. Regarding the person standing above the wall, Mary declares him tameh, but the sages declare him tahor. And Rabbi Huda says the entire wall is ruled as part of the house. An internal wall contains tumah. The house that is close to the tumah remains tameh, and the one close to the tahor remains tahor. If the tumah is in the middle, both become tameh. If there is tumah inside one of the houses and there are utensils inside the wall, those utensils in the half closer to the tumah become tameh, and the ones closer to the tahor remain tahor, and the utensils remain that are in the middle become tameh. This is similar to the Mishnayos that we had, where if you find an item, and which where is it closer to?
Yeah,
Same thing.
yeah, right. We had that in Shkalim. There in Shkalim, you had to put the money into one of the boxes.
Right.
For the more machmir one.
Right. There is tumah in the ceiling that is between the lower story of a house, the upper story, and its upper story. If the tumah is inside the lower half of the ceiling, the lower half of the house becomes tameh, but the upper half remains tahor. If the tumah is inside the upper half of the ceiling, the upper story becomes tameh, but the lower becomes tahor. If the tumor is in the middle, if they both become tameh. If there is tumah in one of the stories, and there are utensils in the building, the utensils that are in the half near
Hold on. Did you just move on to Mishnah Hay? No, you have. No, you've gone Dalit. Okay, carry on.
If the tumor is in one of the stories and there are a series of utensils in the ceiling, the utensils that are in the half near the tumor become tameh, and the other ones that are in the half near the tahor remain tahor. The utensils that are in the middle become tameh, and Rabbi Yehuda says the entire ceiling is ruled as part of the upper story. Okay, because we consider that the floor. Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, so now remember the positions over here. The ceiling. The Chachamim say half and half. Rabbi Yehuda says the entire ceiling belongs to the upper story.
Right.
That's going to come into play today. Okay. Mishnah Hey, Tuma Bein HaKoros. Now this Mishnah is it's a difficult Mishnah because A, we're not sure exactly how to interpret the case, and B, we're not sure whose opinion that's like in the previous Mishnah. So at the moment, what we've got, I don't know why we're bringing the rafters into it. But one of the Meforshim explains that because the tumah is actually inside one of the rafters. Okay, but that's a possibility. It's a bit of a stretch. Let's just talk about it being a ceiling. Okay. And so if it's inside the ceiling and it's covered by a layer as thick as the peel of a garlic. Okay, so it doesn't have to be any kind, like almost anything that's so thin. Now what happens if it's in a cavity inside the ceiling? Let's say, and the cavity.
Sorry, if it's in a what?
If the tumah is inside a cavity.
Cavity, okay, cavity, okay.
Right, that's a cubic tefach. So that cubic tefach is itself a tent. Okay. Now the thing is with the tent, it's got its kulas and it's got its chumras. Okay. So what happens is everything becomes tameh. Why is that? Because we're introduced over here to a concept of a kever satum, a closed grave, where basically if you have a closed grave, then any ohel that adjoins it picks up the tumah from it. Okay. Okay, you've got a piece of a mace, something that's tamei ba'ohel. You've got an ohel itself, and you've got an adjoining tent. So it would be the same thing if you had let's just take a simple case of an ohel mace. You've got a tent, and there's a dead body inside it, and there's another tent that's directly there, like that's sharing a wall with that tent. So because the walls of the tent itself also pick up that tumah, they're part of that. They're part of the adjoining tent, and therefore that the next door tent also becomes tamei. Now it doesn't go ad infinitum because there's no mace in the next tent.
Uh-huh.
But that tent next door also gets tumas ohel. Everything
If
inside.
the tent wasn't touching the wall, though, wouldn't he? That still
And
be
even if it's outdoors. So even if the tent is outdoors and somebody from the outside touches the tent, he becomes tamei.
Mhm. But if the tent, if you're in, there's a tent, mace is below the tent. There's another tent on top of that, but it's not touching any wall. There's just airspace all around. So wouldn't they become tummy then? Also,
I don't have the picture clearly of what you're
but we have the mace and it's covered by this tent.
okay.
Oh, the tent is tummy. The
Yeah.
second tent you say is touching the wall, but what I'm saying, what if it's not touching a wall or a ceiling, anything?
If it's separate, then it's a separate tent. There's nothing to talk about.
All right, so the tummy, because the tummy always
It's only if they're sharing. It's only if they're literally sharing a wall.
Right. Okay.
If the wall of the ohel mace is also a wall of the next door tent,
Right. Okay.
and the next tent also becomes tamei.
Okay.
Okay, so that's called the
Right.
So okay. Now, if it doesn't have, so that's called tamei. Ein sham posech tefach. Now, if there's no enclosure, then and then we look at the tumah as if it is sealed. Now, that's a tumah ritzutza. So a tumah ritzutza, we say bokas wala bokas v'yoredis. Okay, it goes up, it breaks through upwards and downwards if there's no tent around it. Okay, now that looks so now we're not sure whether this Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yehuda or like the Chachamim of the previous Mishnah. Because if it's going like the Chachamim, then again both up and down become tamei. So that in effect there's actually no difference whether there's an opening or not. But if the Mishnah is because it'll both ways it still becomes tamei. Because the tumah breaks through, and once it breaks through into another tent, it spreads throughout that other tent. Okay, but I think the difference would be that tent would then not form a secondary tent.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's the other case the other possibility is that it's talking to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that the entire ceiling belongs to the attic, in which case only the attic becomes tamei, as opposed to if there was an ohel. So then it would make a difference between the two. Okay. Now, what happens if it actually projects a little bit into the house, and you could see there was nothing covering part of the kazayis min hameis? Okay, then it doesn't matter whether there's a tefach or not, because just the house becomes tamei, but not the attic, because the house now is where the tumah is, and the tumah has a way to escape. It goes out through the house. It doesn't have to go out through the attic. Right? Tumah wants to escape, not to go in. Bayis hamishamash is a ohel. It's a kotel. Beg your pardon. Okay, so if a house serves a wall, up until now we've always been talking about a wall serving a house because that's like normal. So what's a case of a house that serves a wall is, for example, if the wall existed before the house. So the cases that the examples that Kati gives in his commentary are, let's say you've got a bedrock wall that was always there, and they built the house using that as one of the walls, or a more possible case is they were building catacombs. Catacombs are done by excavating. So so they're building the catacombs and they're hollowing out there and hollowing out there, and the piece of rock in between the two compartments is a wall that
Right.
was there. It wasn't built for the house; it was always there, and the house was built around it. Okay, so that's the difference between the two cases. Okay, you don't get klipas hashum, so it's judged like a klipas hashum. In other words, even if the mechitza is so thin, that it's also considered a
Garlic peel.
a better mechitza. Yeah. Okay. Ketzad. Okay. Korsel shebein shnei kuchin. So here's the catacomb. You've got the wall between two compartments which don't yet have any dead bodies in them. This is obviously talking about a catacomb where there are no bodies yet.
Okay.
Because once you got bodies in there, it's the end of the story.
All right.
Okay. Korsel shebein shnei kuchin. Or bein shtei me'aros, or between two caves themselves. Tuma babatim. If there's a tuma inside one of the compartments, and there are and there are utensils inside the wall. In other words, there's a compartment that inside the wall. And they're covered up even by something as thick as a garlic peel. Tohorin. That compartment is protected. Okay, because the tumah is going to escape out and it's going to leave them. It's going to leave the kalim alone. Tumah b'kosil. What happens if the tumah is inside the wall? The kalim babatim, but the kalim inside the compartments. And the tumah is protected even by something as small as a klipas hashum. Now, this is where a big difference comes in, is that this is now tahor. Now, normally, if you had a house with things inside a wall inside the house, the tumah's got to get out somehow, and it's going to come out and make the house tameh. But here, because the house is serving the wall and the wall was there first, the tumah doesn't try and escape through the house. It just goes up. Just escapes upwards. Okay. Toharin. Tuma tachas ha'amud. So now a different case here is, imagine you've got a column inside out in the open. Okay, the ruins of some Roman whatever. Okay, so you've got a column, and at the top of the column it branches out to become water. Okay. Tuma bukas vola bukas v'yoredis. Oh, but hold on, I'm confusing with the next Mishnah. This tachas amod im yesh amod besoch hakuch or besoch hamara v'tuma tachta v'hi ritzutza. So right, okay. So if you have tuma underneath that wall between the catacombs, between the grave spaces, and it's directly under the column, then the tuma just goes up. It doesn't try and escape through the cave. So that's similar to the case we just said. Now let's.
It says it goes upward or downward.
Tuma goes up and down. That's it.
Right.
It doesn't fill the rest of the catacomb. Okay.
Hey, guys, what are going on? What's going on over here? Come on, guys.
They're attracted to the warmth of the computer. The computer's warm. So
they all want to eat at the same time. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's go. Now we're talking about our column. Okay. So here's our column, and the overhang bit is called the perach. Okay, so
capital.
Right. Okay, so the capital. Okay, so you've got so now you've got kalim that are overshadowed by the capital, and you've got tumah that's underneath the column. So the tumah is a tumah ritzutza, and all it goes is it just breaks up through the column. It does not infect the rest of the column. All it does is it breaks straight up through the column up to Shemayim, but it doesn't cause the overhang to become tameh. Okay, so that's why we say Toharim. But Rabbi Yochanan bin Nuri Matame, he says no, it does infect the whole column. It breaks through into the column. The whole column fills up with tumah, including the perach, with the overhang, and therefore the tumah spreads to what's underneath them. Halacha is not like Rabbi Yochanan bin Nuri. Hatumah va'kelim shetachas haperach. If you have tumah and kalim underneath the column, underneath the capital, on one side, one on the other side. Okay. Now it depends. If the capital itself is a tefach wide, it needs to be a tefach in order to spread the tumah to the other side. Okay. Then if you have that tefach, that's tameh. Imlav tohorin. Obviously, we're not talking here about where it's supporting a ceiling, because if there's a ceiling in there, then the ceiling itself becomes the ohel. So we're just talking about a plane, something from a ruin, like we have in the Cardo.
Right.
Okay. So you've got these columns standing there, and so if the overhang is more than a tefach, then it'll spread tumah to the other side. If not, not. Shnei pardiskim ze b'tzad zeh. So what's the pardisk? Is the sort of
They call it wall closet.
Wall closets within the wall. Okay, so the inside, so two of these closets are inside the wall next to each other or on top of each other. Okay, and there is tumah buried underneath the wall. So now let's think about the mechanism of the tumah. If the tumah this is inside, if this is inside a house, then the tumah wants to come out. So it's gonna break up and try and get out. Now what happens? It depends if the cupboards are open or not. Because if the cupboards are open, then they're unprotected and the house is unprotected from them. Okay. So if one of the cupboards is open, hu v'habayis tameh, then it and the house become tameh because the tumah breaks up into the cupboard and goes from the cupboard out through the house to the outside because tumah wants to escape. But the other cupboard remains tahor because it's closed. Okay, it's a big cupboard. It's protected. It's not, the cupboard itself is not susceptible to tumah. It can be an ohel. Okay, so the cupboard remains an ohel in its own right and is protected from the rest of the tumah, the one that's closed. And we look at these cupboards as if they are sealed. So they're judged half and half. Whether they bring the tumah into the house. If neither, the commentary explains that if neither of them was opened, right, but they were both closed, we look at them as if they are sealed and there's no empty space in them at all. Okay. So if the tumah is underneath them, then it's judged mechza lemechza. So we look at the tumah as if it was resting inside the thickness of the wall. If it's in the inner, on the inner half of the wall, then the house becomes tameh, and if it's on the outer half of the wall, then it goes it goes to the outside. Okay, just like we learned in yesterday's Mishnayos.
Right.
Okay, so it depends with those. So if the cupboards are closed, the whole thing is sealed. As soon as the cupboard is open, then the tumah says, "Oh, I can get out here," and it skips the one that's closed and goes out through the one that's open.
Okay.
All right, let's go back.
Okay.
This is interesting because it's sort of like fluid dynamics. I don't know, in engineering you learn fluid dynamics. Here in Ohalos we learn tumah dynamics.
Okay. Base A. These items are tahor if they have diminished an olive's volume of a corpse. An olive's volume of netzel, a ladle full of corpse powder, a quarter log of blood, a bone the size of a barley spawn, and a limb that was severed from a living person whose bone is incomplete. Come on, guys, give me a break. I'm sending it out. That's it. You've had enough. Okay, let's go. That's one. Okay. Now two. You go two. Okay. Go ahead. Go follow your sister. Yeah. No. Don't come back in. Oh. I can't get my wife.
On the couch is fine. If she stays, you're good.
My wife is dominating, so I can't. All right. We were on top. I lost my place here. Which I'm sorry, we on
Go to Vav, yeah.
okay, cuff above. Okay. A spine and a skull from two corpses, a quarter log of blood from two corpses, a quarter of bones from two corpses, a limb severed from two corpses, and a limb severed from two living persons. Rabbi Akiva declares all these cases tameh, but the sages declared them tahor from tumas ohel. The bone the size of a barley corn that was divided into two, Rabbi Akiva was tameh. Rabbi Akiva ben Nori says it's tahor. Rabbi Noken and ben Nori says they did not say bones of the size of a barley corn, rather they say a bone the size of a barley corn. A quarter of a bone that I question the bone is the size of a barley corn. Reb Shimon was a tower, the common room of tameh, and a limb severed from a living person that was divided into two is tahor. Reb Yossi declares it tameh, but he agrees that if the limb was removed from the living person half at a time, it is tahor. Okay. All right. Caleb, and we have Zion. Regarding a chair whose two adjacent slats were removed, Rabbi Akiva was a tameh, but the common room was tahor. Rabbi Yehuda says even a bridal chair whose panels were removed and who remained is tahor, since the primary function is disabled and the secondary function is also disabled. A bin whose upper part was removed is tummy on account of the lower part, and if the lower part was removed, it is tummy on account of the upper part. If both the upper and lower parts were removed, Rabbi Huda was a tummy on account of the sides of the common rule of tahor. I was Solomon seat that could become tummy with a midget's tumor. Regarding a block that was, regarding a block that was painted with the red paint and painted with saffron dye and planed, Rabbi Kuba rules a tummy, but the common rule of tahor until one carves it. Regarding a woven basket or a reed basket, one that filled with straw or flocking, if one prepared them for sitting upon, they are tahor, but if one robed the basket with grass reed or cord, they are tummy. A previous tool that could become,
That's it. We're done.
that was, okay.
Yeah.
Right, and we are still in Elah. Okay, hey Aleph. One who derives a fruit's worth of benefit from the hekesh, even if he did not deteriorate, it has committed Me'ilah. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva, but the comments say any article that is subject to deterioration, one has not committed Me'ilah unless he deteriorates. He deteriorates it, while any article that is not subject to deterioration, since one has to derive benefit from it, has committed Me'ilah. How so? She placed a necklace on her neck, a ring on her hand, and drank from a golden cup. Once she has derived benefit from it, she has committed Me'ilah. If he wore a shirt covered himself with a cloak or chopped it with an axe, he has not committed Me'ilah unless he deteriorated it. If one plucked hair from a contest when it is alive, he has not committed Me'ilah unless he deteriorated it. If one plucked hair from a contest when it is dead, once he has derived benefits from it, it's committed to Me'ilah. If one derived half a fruit is worth of benefit from a consecrated object and deteriorated by half a fruit, or derived fruit is worth of benefit from one object and deteriorated a different object by one fruit is worth, he has not committed Me'ilah until he derives one fruit is worth of benefit and what causes one fruit is worth of deterioration in one object. There is no commission of Me'ilah after commission of Me'ilah has already taken place with consecrated objects except for an animal and temple service vessels. How so? If one rode upon an animal and his fellow came and rode upon it, and the other fellow came and rode upon it, or if one drank from a golden cup and the fellow came and drank from it, and the other fellow came and drank from it, or if one plucked the hair from a tatos, and his fellow came and plucked hair from his, and his other fellow came and plucked hair, they all committed Me'ilah. Rebbe says anything that is not subject to redemption is not subject to commission of Me'ilah after commission of Me'ilah. Okay.
Okay.
And we are on to Edios. Oh, so okay, dollar base. Yeah, but in the case of an animal that was born on Yom Tov, all agree that it is permitted. And this is the case of a chick that hatched from an egg on Yom Tov, all agree it is prohibited. If one slaughters wild animal or fowl on Yom Tov, Beis Shammai says he may dig up some earth with a spade and cover the blood. But Beis Hillel says he may not slaughter unless he has the earth prepared from before Yom Tov. But Beis Hillel agrees that he already slaughtered. He should dig up some earth with a spade and cover the blood with it, and when the ashes of the stove are also prepared. Beis Shammai says produce declared ownerless for the poor become ownerless, but Beis Hillel said it is not ownerless unless it's declared ownerless with respect to the rich as well as the tax case with it. Shemitah. That's wrong. Respect to the rich as well as in the case with Shemitah. Of all the sheaves of the field are each the size of one cob and one of the size of 4 cobs. He forgot the large sheaf. That makes sense? If all the sheaves of the field are each the size of 1 cob and one the size of 4 cobs, and he forgot that large sheaf, Beis Shammai says that he is not treated as shikha, but Yassil says that it is shikha. If a sheaf is closed, if a sheaf is close to a wall, to a stack of grain, to cattle or implements, and he forgot it, Beis Shammai said he is not treated as shikha, but Beis Hillel says it is shikha.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are on to Aleph. We may water an integrated field during Chol Hamoed during Shemitah, either from spring that has just begun to flow, or from a spring that has not yet just begun to flow. However, we may not water irrigated fields, neither with rainwater nor with water from a cistern, nor may we dig with ditches around grapevines. But Elazar ben Azariah says we may not dig a new irrigation canal during Chol Hamoed or during Shemitah. The comments say we may dig a new irrigation canal during Shemitah and repair damage during Chol Hamoed. We may repair damaged concerns in the public domain and clear them out, and we may repair roads and streets and ritual baths, provide all public needs, mark graves, and even go out to inspect fields for forbidden mixtures of seeds during Kol Hamoed. Rabbi Eliezer says, like Rabbi Yaakov says, we may divert water from one tree to another, provided that by doing so one does not take water the entire field, and seeds that were not watered before the festival will not be watered during Kol Hamoed. They can come and, however, permit watering in these cases. And they permit all this work because they want people to be able to go to the regal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, Kalayim. Kalayim, we have base Zions. If the point of a wheat field no?
Yes.
Oh, if the point of a wheat field entering into one barley is permitted, because it's evidently the end of the field. If it is wheat, it is Abus is another species. He's permitted to plant close to it of the same species. If his wheat is in the neighbor's wheat, he is permitted to plant close to it in a bed of flax. But if not, a bed of another species. Reb Shimon says, especially lime, linseed, or other species. Reb Yossi says, even in the center of a field, is permitted to test with a root furrow of flax. One may not plant close to a grain field, mustard or safflower, but one may plant close to a vegetable field, mustard or safflower. And one may plant close to a fallow field, to a plowed field, to a stone fence, or to a road, to a fence, which is 10 to fucking high, or to a ditch which is 10 deep and 4 wide, or to a tree which overshadows the ground, and to a rock 10 high and 4 wide. If one wishes to lay out in his field in patches of differing species, he may make 24 patches to a base high. Each patch one base rover, and sow in any species he wishes. If there are 1 or 2 patches, he may sow them with mustard. If 3, he may not sow them with mustard because it looks like a mustard field. So Rebbe Meir. But some come and say 9 patches are permitted, but 10 are forbidden. But Eliyahu says even if all his field is been wet core, he will not make it more than 1 patch. Okay.
Okay, we're good.
I got you to your sheet. I got
a lovely election day.
Okay.
Early, but often.
Be well. Thank you. Bye.